See.
Just try to minimize the number of interruptions. We'll get. We'll alert some things. Okay, so this is the form that we have right now that I want to finalize and get finished. So let's do that first. Let's see. Just run it through and see what's missing. So we have the intro screen. I might think that we could eventually flesh this out more, but we may not need to do that right away. We could turn this into like a checkbox potentially. So this is something where like I might turn it into options they can check.
Are we also doing spell check and stuff like that now? Or is that just a general thing?
Good question. I know I don't want to pick on Kate's motion here. Do you see a spelling mistake?
Yeah, but it's human error. I mean,
right there, right here.
We all make typos, and I think that that's quite a common thing. I've made a number of typos, so I just want to know if maybe one of the check boxes is to just do a. Can you do a spell check in docassemble or?
That's a good question, and the answer is I don't think there's any easy way to do that. So I think you probably would be like copying the text and then switching back to the other one. But yeah, that's a good one here. We want to change that. So check for like noticeable errors. I think one thing we don't want to do at this stage is to go ahead and make major changes. If it's gotten to this point, we're probably not going to want to be looking at it with a reviewer or editor's eye the same way that we would a form that was in an earlier draft.
Could we keep the word error for things that actually breaking code? Oh, my video's not on. Can we keep the word error for things that break code and show an error screen or show an error, so that like if we're talking about typos there, let's say typos, or if we're talking about language, then right, just to keep our language more consistent.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
That's
I'm not
okay
sure
if that means
error,
errors.
if
like if we're talking about mistakes, for example, that could be another word for it.
Mistakes, yes. I don't know if typos would cover everything.
Okay. Sure.
So this would be something I would check, like if there's an address, is it using the autocomplete feature? So like we're using the features that we have available to us to do it. I might say like something we could change here is these aren't using our built-in questions. So it's asking for first name and last name. We know that's not people's complete name. People have middle names and suffixes. And we have questions that are going to be able to be translated for those already. So we might like say part of the process is switching to using those.
So you're saying part of the process would be for us to take out the customized question and go back to the basic question?
That's not necessarily the case.
Oh, just think about it.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, acknowledge that it's there and see if it should be.
It's a long way to write it out, but I think that is part of it here, right?
Quentin, because the basic questions are already in a translated spreadsheet, if people what should people do? Do we want to think about translation now?
We may have a little bit of an interactive process for translation. So one point that they've already made is we have some places where we have conditionals in the middle of a sentence. We probably have to switch to having those be the whole sentence is conditional.
Yeah, so I
Because of
guess
the
the thing
way
is when
grammar
you're
rules work.
going through an interview, are we thinking about translation as we're going through the interview? Like, would we be adding, so for example, this one where you have a custom question, if you decide you want to keep the custom question, would you add the text of that custom question, or would you add that somehow to the translation spreadsheet? Or, and what you just said reminds me to think about if people have a condition in a sentence, should we somehow mark that? Should we indicate that somewhere, have some sort of accompanying file for that interview where we list those things in case they ever are translated? I'm sorry to make this, maybe.
No, that's a good question. So you're talking about the Google Sheet that David has probably, right? The one that's for the website. And the translation file for our interviews actually is different. So it's generated from the file. And it has like all the Mako tags in it.
From when you say it's generated from the file from basic questions, or from every YAML has that?
Every YAML has the ability to generate one.
All right, sorry.
So, yeah, no, that's a good question. So let's see.
I'd forgotten that, right? So that's fantastic.
Well, here, this is how I generate that one. That's already autofilling. So I'll just.
So maybe it would be worth thinking when you're going through your publishing checklist or whatever you want to call this thing that we're finishing interview, is to, just as you note, customize basic questions. Maybe you note text where there's a condition that changes part of the word rather than the whole sentence. Or maybe that should be another step. Maybe we go ahead and publish it, but that's something when we think before translation, you know what I mean? Before sending interviews off for translations.
Yeah, and that might be something to move up earlier, but I'm happy. It makes sense to write it down now.
I almost wonder, Quentin, if that direction should be we should include that direction when people are doing YAMLs from the very beginning.
Yeah, and we're starting to learn what those things are. So like David was just chatting with the translation staff at the court today, and this came up. So it's like, oh, we should put that into our style guide, which we don't have yet, but we do. We should develop one. Let's see, how do I get back? So this would be my first process, is just to run it through. And for some of the interviews, that obviously is harder than others, but a lot of the ones we want to get to this part of the pipeline are ready for that now. So here's one where, no, never mind. No, this is right. So I actually might want to test this on a phone and make sure that it's not too long. Because what happens is if you're trying to scroll on your phone and you touch inside the text area, it's very hard to scroll down to the page to get to the next button. So there is a limit, I think, to how big we can make these work on a phone. I'm not sure what that limit is, but we should explore that.
I think it's 10 rows, but I may be wrong.
10 rows?
It's also going to be different for different phones. So
that is true.
Test on a small phone.
Yeah, my phone's a small phone. That's why I was saying 10.
So yeah, it's like this. You have to grab this little area here on the side of the box, which could be hard to do because your finger naturally goes into this text area. And that might only matter if the text goes beyond the length of the field. If that starts getting its own scroll bar, that might be the only time it matters. Sorry, I'm having to move the pictures around and such. Okay, so this is asking for the county of the court. And I guess that's enough to know the name of the court. Okay. So it's just a combination of the county and the probate and family court. We could probably use our court locator here, but that doesn't have to be a first step thing. When I see a mandatory field like this, like a docket number, I really wonder, does it need to be mandatory? Probably Kate knows it does, but.
As finalizers, do we just flag these things? You know, report them as issues, put them on the Trello card? What's the procedure?
Yeah, so this is a discovery that I'm trying to think through right now. So
Okay.
basically what we have here is we have a couple of forms that I think are probably ready for this now, or that should be soon. This list here. And there probably are more that we should identify that are like that too. Some of them need a lot of work, but to get there, like the affidavit disclosing care or custody, it's part of the 209A. Even though it started out standalone, and we made a lot of changes, so to make sure it still works is going to take a lot of time. But I think these two here are probably a lot closer. So it's partially a review process, and then there's a step that needs to be taken that's a checklist to say, actually, it really is ready to go. Those are a little bit mixed together right now. So for right now, I'm just identifying what are the things that are needed, and then we can figure out at what stage those should take place, if that should be its own process, who should make those changes. But I do feel like docket number needs more explanation before that could be public. Here's where like using our contact page
Basic
would
question.
be helpful for basic questions, yeah, because. Okay, and now this says, how do I set a default to today, which it looks like Kate has figured out. I've just left that in. So catching things like that.
Quentin, what about, and maybe this isn't for the person who's going to be publishing this, but you know, there's a lot of code that we started off with and that we commented. I mean, it's particularly true in 209A. So, but I think there's a lot of code similar to that where there are various comments where somebody was figuring something out or noting something to themselves, but maybe there's too much extra white noise in the interview that might not be helpful going forward. And since we're doing everything in GitHub, maybe we should clean up some of that stuff.
That seems like a good idea. This one doesn't have that, so that's
right.
Yeah, it's actually good to. So here, like I might change this to a checkbox. We want to think about what are things that are samples that we want to let someone be able to copy and paste in. And I think that checklist, that checkbox where you say you can't proceed until you've affirmatively checked the box is probably good to keep consistent UI-wise. And I'm wondering if this is like a basic question that we need.
That's what I'm thinking. That should go into basic questions because we have in the 209A we talk about what pains and penalties of perjury are. And actually, I changed, it doesn't, I don't think it needs to say signing under oath, because it doesn't say, that's what Kate and I were talking about before, where that's kind of shorthand for signing under penalty of perjury. So
By the way, I would suggest putting almost the last sentence as the first sentence, because that one is the one that makes sense to me as a person, that you're saying that all the answers in this are true to the best of your knowledge.
yeah.
Like that,
Maybe
that's
so.
the first concept that I want to see, because I'm reading that other stuff and I'm like, I guess this isn't for me to understand, you know?
Yeah.
So I think the key is for a page like this, just design wise, like you really need to have, if you have a yes and no button, you have to be able to just see the question right above the yes or no button.
Yeah.
Otherwise you can't
It's true,
parse all the way back at the top.
So,
But-
Michelle,
but-
I have written this, I mean, this is a language thing I think we're talking about, and this is,
Okay.
I've written it differently. So maybe, and then if we end up making it be a basic question, then we can work with that, I think.
Just write it once. That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, this UI, right, isn't quite what we want.
Right.
I think we probably just don't want to let them proceed
Right.
until they've said yes. There's some places where we want to have a screen out
Mhm.
and somewhere we want to have them be stuck on that screen. I think this is one.
Yeah, and Quentin, the signing under oath, maybe put it in basic questions, but not all forms need to be signed under oath, right? So we could figure out a way to make it optional for the developer, right?
Exactly, yeah. So it would just be like just like the intro screen, you have to refer to it in your code.
Yeah.
It could be a similar checkbox. So this is like basic questions, intro screen. We could have one that's for pains and penalty of perjury.
Mm-hmm.
And right, so one other thing we're missing here on this form is a preview. So we should think about that.
Are you saying, do we need a preview or do we have a preview?
I think we probably do need the preview.
Are we just going to assume we always need a preview? If you're signing something, isn't that sort of our?
You should always have a preview screen, yeah. I think that's right.
Well,
So this is a mix of checklists, right? Some of them are actions, some of them are confirming. So we'll have to go back and rewrite this a little bit.
So this is going to be the checklist that basically this is a checklist, and then you can copy this checklist to every Trello card that has a form, every form that has a Trello card.
Yeah, I'm taking your suggestion. I think you had suggested doing that.
So you could rename this checklist finish work checklist, or whatever yeah.
Yes.
And then you can
so
just
like this
copy
interview
it.
it's really done, right? Like, so the big things have been done, but then this is the stuff that you need to go to say it's really ready to send to the court to get approved.
So exciting.
Yeah.
Is there a way to have some kind of digest of when basic questions is updated? Because, I basically know what's in what the, defaults are, right? What the built-ins are that we've made for a lot of things, but stuff gets added and I don't know it gets added. So it's a finalizing step. It's nice to know what the new stuff is. Do we have a change log?
Wouldn't it be in the basic questions YAML in MA Virtual Courts?
Yes,
commit?
but reading over that file over and over again, not knowing if there's something new, it might be helpful if there were a change log so that we did know if something was new.
I was thinking, if you see that file in master on GitHub, you see what the most recent changes are, don't you?
We could see on GitHub the most recent changes.
I mean, it says commit, it has a commit message and it tells you when.
I think you can look at the history of one file. I'm not sure how, it's not as clear as looking at the history of like the repository. And for that, you'd have to dig through a lot of stuff in order to see. But the history of one file, I think there's a way to do that. It's not something I've used a lot, but
yeah, we don't really have a lot of changes that are recent that added new questions. We just have a bunch of proposals. So
Yeah, I know, but I mean, we do plan to change it, right? For example, with this having a basic question, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's
So,
true. Yeah. I wonder what this stray T comes from. I'm not sure. I think that was probably just a typo at some point editing the file. And then here we have a missing space.
That's in the file itself, isn't it?
Probably in the file itself.
So will another step be going through the, say, PDF or docx and doing a cleanup there of things that we're noticing?
Yeah, I think we need that. Do another.
It'll be like
through.
the final quality check.
Yeah.
And by that stage, I think that most of the things would have already been caught. Like I already noticed when I was working with Lance that we were catching a lot of stuff that wasn't caught prior.
Yeah. So Quentin, let's call out the template file for people so they know, you know, we're using the same language.
Yeah, and I want to say the output. Let's see if that will work.
Because I think the thing is, like Maeve, you're talking about is that you may not, if you just look at the template itself, you don't see a lot of those little space things because there's so many conditions you miss, you know, or there's paragraph spacing and stuff. So you really need to check it, like Quentin's saying, looking at the output, right?
And by that stage,
you might not have seen that typo in the docx if we hadn't actually put what do you call it, populated it.
No, I agree. I think that, you know, hopefully that kind of stuff will get caught in testing. That this is not going to be a whole nother job, but it's important to check it anyway.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Because it's the last quality check basically. So expected by number 5. Hopefully there's already been some quality control before that. But still
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like you're not doing this to actually do a lot of the work. You're just doing it to check, and hopefully it's going to be as close to. Sorry, this is a bug. Okay, that was my thought.
All right, so I'm gonna just take a look and see if I can take a look at that template. See if we can find those two things.
Oh.
I think I might have made my email T. That might be why there was that T there. So that was good to check. Make sure you're using realistic test information. Because I'm not
But
seeing
not real email
extras
addresses,
either.
unless you want to email the people.
That is true too. Example.
does this have to be edited in Word, or can it be edited in Pages and exported to docx?
I would say if you're going to not use Word, use OpenOffice, because that is what docassembly uses to generate the output. I wouldn't recommend using a whole different editor.
Wasn't it? It was down. There's a substantial likelihood. Did you save the output? Because I don't.
Doesn't seem like it has the spacing error anymore, does it?
Yeah, it's person in danger of motion. Yeah, to the health, safety, likelihood of immediate danger to the.
So this might be in the YAML.
Yeah, right there. Maybe.
There's a space there.
I know. Well, this is okay. So if you go back to your product, your output, because I think it's saying it's more. It's not. Even though the variable is person in danger of motion, the output is not a person. It's the list, the health, safety, and blah blah. You see that?
Yeah, you're right.
Likelihood of immediate danger to health, safety, or welfare of plaintiff. So the health, safety, or welfare of plaintiff and their children, that's what the value of that person in danger of motion is.
Okay, and then I'm noticing an extra period in there as well. So there's a function fixed punctuation. which by default will add a period to the end. So I'm going to put that period there rather than inside that if statement.
So that's not a function. I mean, yeah. If you know the function, that sounds good. Can there be spaces in the parens? Or
I generally
just
wouldn't do that in a
question?
function argument.
What?
Style-wise.
You
I
wouldn't
don't
do
normally do that inside a function argument style-wise, but that's a fine
Okay.
style if it's what you like. There's nothing wrong with it. Just you can even put a space between the word and the. It's just not the normal way people do it.
Well, I've seen them in function arguments, but that's okay. I don't see them a lot between functions and parens, but
Right, same style thing.
yeah.
That it wouldn't change the value of it. These actually is something that if you're doing in a docx file, this space is something that they recommend that you put. It won't generally break things, but it is.
In docx, you do want a space between before and after the curly,
yeah,
between the curly brackets?
Yes. I just noticed that when I was looking at the documentation the other day, it said you should always put one there.
Oh,
It doesn't seem to break things when you don't, but there must be some circumstances in which
reason,
it could.
yeah.
And
Is
I'm
it only
wondering
for double brackets, or is it also for bracket? Does it go before percents? I assume not.
not before the percent, because that's
No,
one
that
token.
will break it.
Okay.
But you should put one after the percent and before the last percent here.
Okay.
So if and end if should always have a space between that and the percent.
Okay.
I'm wondering if that is what introduced that lack of space. Like that could be the reason why they say to do that. So I'm just making that change because it's easier to read and it's more consistent anyway. And it's a really small file to make this change in. I wouldn't go around and do that for.
You have opposing party
longer
name
one.
full there on the fifth or sixth line.
Thanks.
And I mean, of course, the stuff underneath. Yeah, you can probably take it into an editor and just.
Yeah, I mean, there's other ways to do it. So I could go and just do a search and replace here, but I don't think
You're
it would
halfway
be.
through.
I don't
Regex.
think that'll let you do regex, but
There's something very similar to
There's
regex
something
in
like
Word.
that in Word that allows you to do it.
Yeah, and we don't really need to do regex here. It's just really finding, I suppose we could do it without having the space. I think it's just up caret.
well, caret's the beginning of the evaluating string.
It's not regex, it's its own weird thing.
Word has its own weird code.
Oh.
So, but I think it's just as simple in this case to just do replace with one space.
And then go through and where you have two
do the double
spaces, go back and
spaces.
do one space.
Well, you could also
exactly.
undo the changes you just made, and then you'd have to.
There's lots of
the
ways
rest
to
of
do
them.
it.
Oops.
I could do two spaces and replace those with one space too. That's, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
So then you don't have to double check your regex syntax.
It's awesome.
Okay, so yeah, that would have taken a while because we did 39 replacements.
Yeah.
This looks like it is probably
That looks a little weird, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, delete that one and put it next to the variable name date, right?
I think probably. I'm just trying to look to see if there's some reason that was a style. I think that's exactly what happened. It's just that's a stray curly bracket. And let's see here.
And would we change that to signature date?
Depends on the interview, doesn't it? Probably.
It wouldn't normally say signature date in a motion that I wrote by hand. It would just be dated or date. I know a lot of the forms say that, but that's more because it's an instruction to somebody than part of the formatting. So the PDF forms that we have, they're doing two functions. They're talking to the person who gets the motion, and they're talking to the person who's filling it out. Something like this is only talking to the court. So there's some conventions that are a little different for that
So
reason.
okay, so in a docx, is that, so how would we identify where only a date is needed and where a signature date is needed, or do we not need to identify that?
I would say that's a good example of a change where unless you knew it was a typo, I would not make that kind of change at this stage of the form review. So if it's gone through, this is something that someone who already is a subject matter expert worked on. So I wouldn't second guess things that might be choices. Just maybe double check.
Oh, right. So that's certificate of service, right? So that's saying you might you sign it, but the date is actually when you think you're going to serve it.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not the date that you sign it. That's what's going on there.
Yeah. Although here she's made them the same date.
Yeah.
So that is something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, this is a little bit jumping around, but hopefully this is good. Having people to watch and have questions is helpful. So I'm going to take a look at the way that I handle signatures for the COVID motion to dismiss. And then think about where to kind of have these types of things. So if we want to be able to show people a preview of the document, then we need to have a version of it that doesn't have the signature, and it doesn't require the signature.
Oh, good point.
So the way that I have handled this, and that some of you might have to deal with it if you're having your own docx files that you're working with, is just by putting that inside a condition. So I'm checking to see if the signature is defined, and then in my logic, I have to make sure it is defined when I want to have the final form and not when I have the preview form. There's tons of ways to do it, but this is, I think, a way to do it that makes sense. Here in this form, the reason why there's that for loop is because there's a chance for multiple people to sign it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the case with a motion to vacate marital home. There's only one party of interest.
Mm-hmm. So I think, Quentin, this makes sense, is maybe if we had this code somewhere where you, in the checklist, where you say add preview.
Yeah.
There's somewhere people can go and look at the code for if docx, check to make sure this code is in the preview template. Is in the template.
So I started putting some things like that here, and there might be a better place, which could be a Google Doc, but I like it being part of our Git repository.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to do that if you can. Yeah. So could we then link to that README file in your checklist? In other words, so people can get here quickly, so they don't have to go to Git. You know what I mean?
Definitely a good idea. Okay, so let's make this a new heading here. And this might not be the best place for it long term, but at least for now, we can link to it so people can find it. How to make a signature block optional in a docx template. And then I'll just copy that code, both versions of it. So we have the version here that we just did with multiple and single. Oops, that's the wrong thing.
This is fascinating. I mean, this is helpful for everybody, I think, anyway, when we're, if we can go through a lot of this stuff ourselves before we put, before we say it's ready to preview, then it means that people, you're saving people work, aren't you, when they go through to finish it.
Right, exactly. And that was my point, Caroline, is like exactly that. We want to have as little work as possible at this quality check stage.
Right.
So it is beneficial to learn how to do this on docx and, things that we need to be looking out for. Just minimizes the work and it reduces it essentially just to a check.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, Vanilla.
Sinead and I have been doing our interview, and we have our preview screen at the end after both parties have signed. So should we change that to have it before signatures and then have another preview at the end?
There should be two screens where you get to see the form. So one would be before you sign. Yeah.
So if we had a preview before we sign, and then we have our download screen at the very end where you can also view the PDF or the docx, do we need then like a nearly there screen or a second one? Download.
There's one preview where you see everything filled in and not the signature. And then the next time you see the form, it's the download screen.
Okay, so we just need to change our preview before the signatures.
Right.
Yeah, and take out the signature. To use this block that Quentin's showing us.
Would you put it in the chat, Quentin?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll put it in the chat as well.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, so let me do that here. I'm not sure why those backticks aren't doing what they normally should do. Oh, here we go. That's why. So that's one part of it, is having that signature be conditional inside the document. Now that I'm already making changes to the template. So I almost always use the sync button to work in the template rather than downloading and uploading. But now I'm wondering, before I sync, where should I make the changes to the YAML? There's good reasons to do it either way. All right, but let's go and find the attachment block. And I'm going to make a copy of this attachment block. And I'm going to change it to preview. And the way that I'm going to deal with this being shown at the right time is by making sure that the signature is not defined when I first want to generate this. This is jumping around a little bit, but our send to court code, it uses particular variable names that it's looking for. So there are a couple of options for how to do that. I think, here we go. So this is the preview version of the form, just form to sign. And then we have final form to file and form to file no cover. So those are kind of three variables that are used inside. Are they listed here?
Code.
Yeah, for sending to court. So there are some times where you want to have those be something that you can do in code, and sometimes you just, the example would be if you're going to have an addendum or like 2 or 3 forms that are part of one package, those should be something that you create in code by combining multiple files. But for this form, there's only one page, there's only one document that is, and it never is going to have an addendum because it's a docx file and it can expand to fill whatever room it needs. So I think I'm going to actually rename the variables inside the docx attachment blocks to reflect the ones that we're using in our send to court code. Because then there's no saying this variable equals that one. I'm just going to use those names directly. And I'm going to put those in the same document.
Would this be just for a docx, or is this also for a PDF, this practice?
It could happen for a PDF as well. Let's see. Although there is one thing I'm realizing actually that may not let this work, which is that those are meant to be PDFs. So I take back that I can do that for this one. If it were a one document PDF, I could just use these directly. Because it's a one document docx file, I want to convert these into PDFs first.
Yeah. So in your interview, you can, I mean, do we have a guideline so that even though we're using docx templates, the user gets only a PDF, they don't get docx files? And then you can use these variables?
Well, let me show you what we're going to do to get those variables. So actually, I'm going to leave these the way they are.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to make one or more code blocks. I think I should make probably 3 different code blocks. So final form to file is going to be something that we don't have to worry about actually. I'm gonna actually make
it already exists, right?
This is the basic questions file automatically combines form to file, no cover with the cover page. And I will point out one more thing about the code inside basic questions. So what this is doing here is it automatically looks through every metadata block inside your file if you made it with the interview generator, and it will automatically create that file for you. So this variable will get defined for you automatically if you use the interview generator for your code. But it might not do what you want because it's not going to know about addenda. It's not going to know about the order of those forms that you want it to have if it's a bundle. But if it's one PDF with no addenda, you don't even have to ever worry about these variables. They're handled for you in the background. So I'll even write this here. All right, so I'm going to do this one first, form to file, no cover, and form to sign. So form to sign doesn't matter as much. You don't have to necessarily use this, but I think the reason why I created that is so that we could have things like a link on the signature page to let you see the form you're about to sign. Because that's a flow that isn't fully worked out. Like, so if you're sending someone a document to sign, you probably want them to be able to see what they're signing to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would make sense to have that be part of basic questions and to have it know about the form that they're being asked to sign. So if we stick with using these, then maybe in the future there will be some features in basic questions that let you handle that more elegantly than we do right now. I'm introducing a new function here, which some of you already have worked with, but it's called PDF concatenate. And it can combine 2 files, but it can also just convert a docx file into or any other file, like an image someone uploaded. It'll convert it into a PDF for you as well. So there are other ways to get PDFs out of an attachment, but this is kind of the easiest way. And it will work with all the different kind of files the same way. So I'm just going to mention the variable name of my attachment. That's what goes into PDF concatenate.
Finola and Sinead, what did you, when you say you already have a preview screen, is it a docx or is it, are people able to see the preview as a PDF or a docx?
We're using the PDF concatenate.
Oh, you are using this. Okay, that's all right, fine. Yeah.
And let me just make sure I got that right. Form to file, no cover. Yep. Okay. So when you start using these consistently, then you can also have these screens be kind of more like drag and drop. Even if you're copying them and modifying them, you can copy it and not change anything other than the text people see. You don't have to customize and remember the variable name for that form.
The PDF concatenate, sorry if I missed this, but it only has one argument. So what are you concatenating?
It also does conversion. So it can convert or it can concatenate. There are other ways to get a PDF out of a docx, but this is going to be syntax that's good to just, you only have to know this one thing.
Okay.
It will concatenate one or more files. So, and they're just separated by commas, or you can give it a list. It will unpack the list, or it will use the full list of arguments you provided and combine all of those into the PDF. So actually one more thing we should do here is there's a keyword argument called file name, which we should actually use. It might be good to put the word preview in there so people, when they download it, know it wasn't the final version of it. And we include the full file name, so including the extension.
So if people download the preview, can they download the preview, share it with people. That's one thing they can do. Yeah.
One thing for us to think about style-wise is whether we want to have things like party names in the variable, the file name, but I think for now, I'm not sure if that's a good idea, so it's safe to not do that. Okay, so we've put in those two things. Let's go ahead and look first at the code block here. And so sometime before the signature, we're going to want to show, we haven't written yet, the preview screen. And I think that's pretty much it. So in the preview screen, we're going to look for that variable that is our preview version of the docx file. Okay, so let's put that preview screen kind of right next to the other screen where they can download it, because it just makes more sense to do that. Oh, I'd like to give this an event tag rather than make it mandatory. It could be a checklist. And some of you might have already noticed that that's not a good variable name. Slightly didn't say anything. All right.
So wait, didn't you already do the other attach? Oh, you did the other attachment.
Do we want to add IDs to the questions?
That's not a bad thing to have on our finished checklist either, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely the download screen is a really important one to have it on, so you know when people got to the end, because that's what's going to be tracked in our Google Analytics.
Right. Quentin, when they're trapped in the Google Analytics, the analytics tracks the interview, not just the ID, right? So, I mean, you don't need to identify each question ID by the interview.
Exactly, yeah. So it kind of shows it like a folder, and you'll be able to see or at least that's one of the views you can use. It'll
Okay.
have the name of the YAML file, and it will
Right,
have the name
okay.
of the ID. All right, so let me think about the best place to copy this from. I want to copy probably from the TRO. This could be a basic question, but I think probably you want to have customized download instructions for a lot of forms.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that we need to do that. We can copy this preview screen too. And we're just going to have to take out the word housing TRO. So you can see here, so I've already changed the way that the housing court TRO works. So it's using, other than the attachment code here, which has to be from your attachment block. It can't be something you created with PDF concatenate. That the rest of this text here is generic. So you should just be able to copy and paste this in. And I'm going to take out this need block here.
Is there a way we can make this a basic question using the metadata to identify the attachment?
We could, but keep in mind that, you know, the biggest packet we've worked on already does have multiple forms, so it wouldn't work for that, and it has addenda. So I think it's okay for this to be copy and pasted, but we could have it be a placeholder that people can use without having to copy and paste it for sure. So yeah, this is where I don't know if it's better to make this be part of our interview generator or a basic question. I'm not 100% sure.
Interview generator sounds promising, yeah. In my opinion.
Yeah. So I don't want to use the one that's the preview. Here. And this is already correct. It's the form to sign. And let me see. I called it housing TRO previous question, but I actually named mine preview screen. Let me just take a look here. I can leave those comments in. Those are fine. So this is important to have here, which is an argument for making it part of basic questions. But so once someone has sent their form, we don't want them to be able to click the button again and try to send it a second time.
Once they
So we
send it
hide
to the
that
court.
Once they sent it to the court, exactly, yeah. So we want to hide that option from them completely. And then we also want to remind them how to get in contact with the court. So that's what this does. So it's really a good thing to use the same way it is now. Let's see. Okay, I think we've done our changes that we need. This would be like something to check too, right? So do those matter in this form? No, because we're not actually asking for the court name. It's made out of the county, and we know it's only a form that can be used in probate and family court.
So a checklist in the Trello is a lot of these things you don't change, you just check to make sure that they are what they should be.
Yeah. And that would maybe be done in the testing too. But these are things that I realized, you know, we didn't have a process for this 2 months ago. I think I think we're ready for a process now. So this is kind of developing that process, and it can be something the developer does. It could be a standalone thing. Definitely shouldn't be something that I'm the only person who knows how to do. And that's just because we didn't have it before. I was the first person to do it, so no one else
You know,
knew.
it does make sense, this finishing checklist, to ask developers to go through the finishing checklist, and then the person who makes it live does it again. I mean, I think that's what Maeve was saying before. It's just that, you basically have two people do it, right? So that you do it. And if you're the developer, sometimes you're just blind to things, aren't you? So
Exactly. I've seen that with the PDF pre-processing.
Well, also there are going to be some people who develop it and don't have this level of kind of familiarity or comfort with this technology. So
yeah.
I think we're also trying to make it a possible part of the pipeline where people with different levels of skill are able to contribute in ways, right?
Yeah, I think those are both right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this really is feeling like it's maybe a little bit too long. It's really hard to judge. You want people to get a sense that they have a lot of room, but you don't want it to be unwieldy to use the page when they don't have a lot of things to say. So I'm actually going to go ahead and change those to be a little bit smaller.
I don't have my phone with me.
So this is set to 10 rows. That's what you were saying, Caroline, huh?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I used 10 rows.
Okay.
And it
Make
seems
sure there's
to
not
work,
another
but
one
now I'm
that's-
forgetting if
Oh,
I
this one
actually
is
tested
20.
it on my phone. And
That one
Michelle,
was
you have
20.
a primitive phone, don't you? I don't know, somebody else, Michelle, you have a primitive phone, don't you?
I do have a primitive phone, fortunately or unfortunately, if you want
Well,
me to
it's good
test
for
it out.
testing whether the 10 row thing works, isn't it?
It's true. Are you saying I shouldn't switch my phones? Because I'm having trouble. I'm going to have to give up this primitive phone soon. Might as well get some testing out of it.
I'm trying to decide if this is good for people to use or not, if we have to change that.
I mean,
This is a finishing thing, but.
what do you mean in terms of change it?
So most people in Massachusetts do not know what county they live in.
Right.
Because it's not a government level thing.
Okay, so but this one, presumably, if you want, I think she's saying you're required to have the docket number in this interview, right?
I think so. So we should check with Kate.
I think she said, I think she put that somewhere. I feel like maybe it wasn't for this interview, but I remember seeing her say for some interview that the docket number was required. So if the docket number is required, it's easy to find your court, because you have to have if you know the docket number, you're going to know the court, because you have to have whatever paperwork is in front of you, right? So you just look it up.
That's a fair point. Okay.
Well,
let's also do one more thing.
You're asking the big question, though, aren't you, about probate and family courts?
No, not necessarily.
Oh.
Let me see. We get the user's address somewhere. Where do we do that?
Yeah. But this is a motion, so their address, they're filing in a court where they already have a case.
Yep.
And the case may not be where their address is. The court may not, I mean, the court may not be the court that goes with the address that they have now.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. I'm just thinking we can tell them their address on that same page, the county of their address. So it may be helpful to them, but it might not.
I wonder if it might confuse people.
You think it's not likely to be the same?
I think it could be all over, particularly if you're doing. Yeah, I would check with Kate about when you do a motion, what cases you do a motion to vacate if it's other than a 209A. Because the 209A, you file it. It really needs to be, I think it's better if we assume in this case, in this interview, that they have to have the docket number. We could just say, look on your court paperwork where the docket is on the left-hand side. You'll have the court name or the court county or something. Check your.
I'm doing the thing where I'm putting in. Oops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, if we can find a picture of what that pleading would look like.
Yeah.
But you're just saying it would be in the top left corner.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the left corner. Now I'm trying to remember. remember because Mass Courts is now producing the forms and they're not the way they used to be. So I can't remember exactly.
And what would we be able to tell them about? I say your form, but that's not very descriptive. What kind of thing are they looking at? It could be more than one thing, right?
It could be their summons. Actually, no, except if there could be plaintiff as well, couldn't it be?
Yeah.
But essentially all the papers that they either get from the court or send to the court will have the court name on it.
Okay, so actually that's the good point. They already know what court they're in. Choose the county that matches your court. For example, if your court is Suffolk, probate and family, choose Suffolk. Is that weird capitalization? Is that seem like that's a good way to say it?
For now. I think if we can get an image, we'd put that in and take out the for example, because as we were talking about the other day, if we say example Suffolk, people will pick Suffolk.
That does happen. But yeah, the picture would help. But even then, if it's a picture and it shows a real form, people will copy that.
Yeah. I'm not sure the example. I think we might have to leave that. Choose the county that matches your court.
Okay.
I would take out the for example in this case.
So maybe a how do I know?
Yeah, if you filed the complaint, then you filed this case. If the other side filed the complaint, then they filed the case.
Let's help for that option. So I'm going to do a help for the question.
Just to kind of, is this something any person finishing can understand, or is this not a finishing thing? Is this like an SME thing? Like, right? Like, is there a way for example, for me to identify when something like this is going on?
Well, let's make it really general. So, okay, so flag any usability questions that pop up. Recognize
right, but
it's probably not the time for major changes.
So this wouldn't be part of the usual procedure. For example, I wouldn't recognize that that was a usability issue.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I think that there's not necessarily a one size fits all, but probably some of these things on our checklist we'll have to take out, and some of the things that you're seeing me do wouldn't fit the every time procedure.
Yep. Just trying to identify those and pin those down. Thanks.
Makes sense.
Quentin, are we thinking in a way, I mean, as a finisher, it's like another quality assurance check thing, and maybe it just isn't finished yet, and it needs to go back to the SME or developer.
That's a fair question. Yeah. So I kind of nominated Kate's form without her having a chance to do
I know. I haven't done the readability thing on it either. So I figure I looked at it, it was accurate. You can understand it, but I think it's not quite ready for doing that. But I think this is a good example to use. But this
part of it is thinking
the kind of thing that you would say, okay, like to Michelle's point, this is not really ready to finish, right? It needs to go back to the SMEs or developers with these questions.
It really should be. You're right. Yeah. So, and then the question is, what do we consider to be ready to release?
Yeah, and then
versus things that are serious issues that, or serious is maybe not the right word. Like we should fix this.
Yeah.
Does it need to happen before it goes out the door? I don't know.
Right.
Especially when out the door is, okay, it's ready to go through the testing phase. This is a language change you're making that won't break the testing. It needs to get approved by the court. The court probably isn't giving it the same careful level of review we are. Mm-hmm. But we could be making those other improvements while that phase begins.
Yeah.
I see this as something that could happen in parallel, but if we didn't have urgency to finish the forms by a certain time, you would make those serial processes.
Sure. I mean, this is the kind of thing I think that we
I might take this.
We could send to the court to review and still make these edits, right? This isn't
Yeah.
something we need court approval for. This is
Exactly.
yeah.
They're really looking at the output is the main thing that they wanted to control. And then I'm sure if we're like giving
Really specific legal advice, yeah.
Yeah, so they might not like that. And they didn't
Right.
like us saying only letting people, like kind of steering people to file in the housing court only for the TRO, which makes sense too, because there's more
Right.
than one forum for that.
But you've got no option. I mean, you have to file in probate and family court for this one, so.
Yeah, those were the kinds of feedback that they had, though. It wasn't like reword this question, so it's better.
Yeah.
It was about pretty substantive effects of the form. Okay. Let's see, I really just wanted to check to see if we could get those screens again in the right place, which we haven't gotten to yet. This is the danger. Anytime you look at a form, you're like, oh, I want to change this.
Yeah.
And then you don't get to the thing you really wanted to do.
Tell me about it.
As a programmer, that is less of a problem. As a non-lawyer programmer, the lack of knowledge of law is very helpful in this situation.
But Michelle, you acknowledge that sometimes the question doesn't make any sense to you. So it's not a non-lawyer, it's as a reader. You read it and you think, oh, this needs to be fixed because this doesn't make any sense.
I agree. I just don't think I have permission to make a judgment on it. So
Oh,
I don't see that as like,
you just make it an issue.
I've been told I should, leave. Well, not just that. I should, kind of swim in your lane kind of thing, right? So I can flag something if
Yeah.
that's desired, but I'm not gonna go
Change it,
editing
yeah.
it. Yeah.
So, okay, so our preview screen did not do what it was supposed to do. And that's because I missed some of the signature blocks. Okay. This form gets signed in a lot of places.
Mm.
If you're curious, this Jinja tag here, %p, means it's deleting the whole paragraph. So I don't have to indent that, but it's just easier to read. If it's in the right place, I think. And then I'm going to put instead of making it underlined, I'm going to actually put in a line there. And let's see.
What did you use to put in the line? Did you use a character or did you put a horizontal line in?
I just put some underline, some characters, yeah. So the minus,
Underscores.
underscores.
Underscores, yeah, okay.
Yeah. All right, let me just check. So it's okay, 6 times. All right, so that's defined. And then, okay, so yes, 3 signature blocks. Each one is 2 places, which is good. If it was an odd number, I would know something was wrong about how I was dealing with that. Okay. Let's check out that. That we know we're going to have to fix, but that's okay. Okay, oh, so we have to make that other ending screen mandatory, which it was done a different way before. I think it was just called download. So it's this event here. So this is something probably everyone's familiar with. This doesn't matter where it goes. It could go in the middle between the sub-question and the question, but that would just be confusing. I generally
put the stuff that triggers the question at the top, because then I can always see what's triggering the question.
I do usually like to have it at the top too. Although I made this block, so. When I was writing it by hand, I put it at the top. It's like, what is it doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mandatory sets event field would, except other than when it's fields. When it's like fields plural, then it goes, I guess, yes, no type of stuff.
Why is it looking for allowed courts? I wonder. Oh, I know why. Because, okay, so our forms do actually require you to pick a court.
Oh, you didn't pick it. The
Because
YAML didn't allow you to pick a court?
we have to use the court selector.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't. And the reason is because that's how we're getting the name of the court for getting the email that links up with that court too.
So so it's the YAML that's missing the court, or it was the docx that's missing the court?
It's the YAML. I'm just looking to see if it's referenced in here. Like I was wondering if it combined the names somewhere to come up with the name of the court, but it doesn't. It just uses this court county variable. So I'm going to change that actually. So we might as well have it do double duty.
Yeah.
So we're going to change that question actually.
Yeah.
The one that has them ask for the county. So they're going to actually choose the whole name of the court, which might make that a little bit easier to understand anyway.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
And we're going to have a, somewhere here, we're going to put a code block. At least I like these things to be standalone. And we want to make sure that this is a required field, but we want it to pop up in the normal flow. The name of the court, that is a required field, but we want it to be in the normal flow. So we don't want to just let it pop up on its own. Like, let's say if we saved it right now and ran it, what it would do is show us the court selector after the signature block, which would be kind of a confusing order. Well, actually it's saying and use it before we can sign it, but even so, like that's not really the right place to do it.
This is one of the ones that I usually find I have to just restart the interview on as opposed to refresh when I want to.
For courts?
When I want to change like the order of questions that I've already answered and stuff.
Yeah, that's not always easy to know when.
If you go back far enough, I think you don't have to start over again.
Yeah, you just have to go before the definition of whatever it is was requested, what was supposed to be requested.
Yeah, so I didn't this time. So if it's always worth a try, and then if it's not doing what you expect, don't mess around with like, oh, I didn't make the change right. Just try running it from the beginning again. That's my rule of thumb. So this button is here, this make changes button. There's no review screen here. So we want to think about whether that's something we need or not. But you can also just take out that button.
Where's the review screen button? Is it in the stuff that you just copied in the download page, in the preview page? Preview screen?
Let me just click. And so actually that's another variable I'm going to try to define here. So we have this event called review all sections. Okay. I'm going to actually set that off with a bullet too, just because that's the way we've done the other ones. So this is a pretty short interview. We could add navigation on the left and have, so what this review screen does is it lists all of the navigation sections on the left. Now this doesn't have any, so it's empty. That's what this code here, section links nav does. And it has this warning here as well that says if they've already sent the form that they can't make changes. They can make changes, but they won't be sent to the court automatically. So if you're not using sections, you could make this be your own review screen and use it the way that you like to use it. I think this interview, we already got a chance to review our affidavit. It doesn't necessarily need a review screen to go out in the world. Some of them do. This one I think is safe enough to not need it. So let's just go down to the download page.
This
One thing is like what the
idea
preview
about,
does.
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say like the preview is a little bit less meaningful if you can't make a change after you see the mistakes. I actually don't even have the edit button there. So let's just check here. So we have download here.
Well, with a short interview, you can hit the back button.
Yeah, you can.
But I will say, if the review screen comes after the preview, if the ability to change your answers comes after the preview screen, I as a user, I would see the PDF and I'd be like, that doesn't look right. And I'd press the back button to try and fix it. I wouldn't go on to the next screen.
I think that we need to give people 2 chances to change it. So I think on the preview screen is certainly one of the places they need a button to be able to edit it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think, again, before they send it to the court, they still need that last chance to make the change.
Sure, yeah.
Because that's another place they're looking at it. And then, as we know, like, you don't always catch everything the first time you look at it. Hopefully people check it one more time before they send it. Okay. Maybe I should put the contents of that actually. That's gone now, but all right. So I'm going to go ahead, and so I'm on the test server. Anytime I click this button here to submit to the court, it's not going to be triggering anything that actually gets sent to the court for real. It's going to go to the mass access at suffolklitlab.org. This interpreter question, we might want to move into the flow.
Yeah.
So if it's not already part of the interview, because it's not such a great, we need to have it before we can send the cover page to the court, but it's not so great to have it pop up in the middle here. So let me just find that. That's probably another checklist item.
So checklist item should be make sure there is a need an interpreter, a question asking for an interpreter, and make sure it's at least before. It should probably be before the preview screen, don't you think? It should be in the contact. It should be in the. It should be in the contact info. It should be close to contact information.
I think that makes sense.
Because the thing is, if you're, that makes sense. You know, any interaction you have with the court, if you need an interpreter, it should be part of that. So it may be, I'm thinking again about this issue of, like Michelle, you were bringing up what developers and coders, how far along their skill level is. But there's certain questions, unless we think, unless I need an interpreter should be part of basic questions. I mean, I think that's right. I think maybe interpreter should definitely be part of basic questions, part of the contact, in the contact sort of flow. And then that's something that you don't have to ask developers to be sure they include.
Well, there's some forms where you don't need an interpreter, right? Where you don't go to court.
Right now,
yeah,
it's,
but we
aren't all our forms, right now we're just doing court forms, aren't we?
Yeah, all of our forms are for the court. We haven't talked about any forms that aren't going to be filed.
So
Some of them are for advocates.
I didn't realize that all of them required court hearings, like going in front of a judge and having an interpreter. Like speaking in front of people is my question.
Well, it's information for the clerk that is part of our cover page, and they need to talk to all of the litigants, even if there doesn't end up being a hearing.
Yeah.
So they need to know if the
Okay.
person needs interpretation.
Sure,
They can
that sounds
talk to
good
them.
then.
Yeah.
And they have lots of ways to do that over the phone. It's not just about having a hearing.
Yeah. Anytime the court has to interact with the person who's filing the papers. Which,
I am happy with your answer. I don't need any more.
no, I'm just thinking out
convincing,
loud. I'm
yeah.
just thinking
Okay.
out loud. I'm just not just answering your question, but just thinking, would there be any time? But I think it doesn't hurt to ask that question. And I think we probably want to make sure we do ask it.
Same with this question too. So I wonder which exact thing is triggering it. I think it's probably let's see. Because most of these aren't mandatory, so I'm not sure which question it's looking for. We needed the definition of the mobile number. Interesting. So it at least needed to be asked at some point. They could have left it.
I think, in terms of, I've sort of changed this in some of our other interviews, but I think other ways to contact you would be the best way to contact you, which would include the help explains the other ways. But I think if we say the best way to contact you, that's probably a better label for that field. Since we're going on tangents.
Yeah, I think I struggled a lot about how to phrase that. And so one thing is it's doing double duty.
Yeah.
So which we could change, so it's not doing double duty, but.
Well, it can do double duty, but just say the best way to reach you. And then the explanation for that field explains if you don't have a phone number, right?
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, that change makes sense to me. For now,
yeah.
What should we do with this? I think we're going to have to. So first of all, this is still the old version of this question, which I've overridden in every interview I've done now that we've done more usability work.
Mm-hmm.
Having this be one question is too difficult for people with these 4 optional fields.
Do you think it's too much?
I think we need to have it be 2 questions.
Yeah, because the thing is, it's not clear that the form, people don't say that you need to have one way to contact you. So it helps to just split it up, what is your address, and then how can the court contact you? Because otherwise a lot of people will try.
So you're not using the address as a way to contact?
No. It's just a different question for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I feel like I can copy from another interview, including
the TRO has it like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just, people were getting confused about why those contact screens weren't mandatory, and then it was like you'd press next and it would say you need to put one way of contacting you. So it's just a nicer flow.
Well, I thought that was, I guess my solution to that, I kept it all on one screen. And then if I change that as the best way to contact you, that's mandatory. Then that means they've got to put something in there before they can leave the screen.
That's also another way to look at it.
Oops. So, yeah, because that means they can't get past that screen without putting something in. And are we, I guess my question is, are we allowing a mailing address to be the only way to get in touch with you?
No.
Allowing it, right? So if they put a mailing address in, they have to also put in a phone number or an email address, right?
Or give other instructions that are more detailed and specific about how to reach them.
Yeah, like the friend or but that still is giving, it's open text, but it's still a phone. They still need it. We can't require a phone number or an email address in that open text field, but we.
Yeah. We can explain it here. So I don't really like contact notes, but let's change that. So what you were saying is best way to reach you. Let's try that out. Just like as a statement like that.
Yeah, or what is the best way to reach you? I mean, you could make it be a question. So I don't know. I think it's funny. We have our testers, but they aren't our users. So when we break that into 2 pages, it may be because I think people are used to doing your address, your phone number, your email, all that stuff on one screen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it may. I'm not trying to argue for doing one screen, but I'm also trying to say I don't know the 2 screens necessarily makes it clearer. And if our users aren't finding it complicated, just our testers, maybe we're responding to something that isn't really an issue.
Well, no, I think that's fair. I know I found it confusing, even though I did it that way the first time.
No,
And I just
I also
don't.
found it confusing. I was like, what does it mean? Like,
I
What
just
about
wasn't sure
A/B
how.
user testing?
I put in an address and then it still won't let me go on.
You
know?
Part
find
of
it
that's
confusing to have all the contact information on one screen?
no. What's confusing is that it's mandatory, but it's 4 fields, and we
Oh, you
can't
mean
really make
those
one of them
specific-
mandatory.
One of those specific fields is mandatory. I got you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it solves that problem, because what happens is if
Yeah.
I don't answer this,
Uh-huh.
and I tried to think of other ways to make this better. We could do our own validation code, but if we're trying to use the built-in one, you get this modal pop-up, which modals are really confusing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, so you have to scroll all the way up to the top of the screen to find this.
Yeah. To see it. Yeah, I got you.
And then read it and then look back and interpret it. So if it were like right here, which we could do on our own with JavaScript, then it might not be as bad to have it be all on one page, but it's the combination of it being a lot of information on the screen. You don't know which fields are needed and which ones aren't. And then the part that tells you that it's needed is all right at the top.
You don't see it, so you just can't keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is not unique to us. Like,
Right.
I've seen plenty of bad validation pages on the internet. A lot of it's just a really thing that people don't get the UI very good for. Okay.
So maybe
So I'm going to just go ahead and send this and see.
I have a suggestion. What if we have a show if that does some JavaScript or whichever one it needs to be to do this, but it shows a note in red if you haven't filled out any of the contact information that's required. Does that make sense? Or hide if any of the contact information is filled in.
And that was the first UI that I tried. And I didn't like, well, first actually was a hide if. And so a giant input box on the screen disappearing when you don't type something.
No, it's not an input box. It would be a note. It would be a note in red that would disappear if they filled in one of the contact information things.
Yeah, I tried it and I didn't find the disappearing and hiding stuff to be a much better experience, but it's not like the end of the world.
You did a note, not hiding the field, right?
I don't find that to be like fundamentally different, but I mean, I guess it's a little bit more like the validation and wouldn't require us to write our own validation JavaScript.
Because then then they're also able to put stuff into the contact information field, even if they put stuff into the mobile or whatever, they might want to say, I put 2 phones in, but just contact me via mobile, right? So you don't hide the field just because they gave answers for the other questions. You just let them know that if they haven't put answers there, and then that warning goes away. It's like you have, an automatic, like imagine you had pre-validation. I don't know if I'm explaining this well.
No, I think we understand it. I think it's just hard to figure out if that's the right UI. Oof.
Maybe
I'm not sure we do understand it, but okay.
We should probably try a few different ones. And that would definitely be something I think we should look at user testing. Try various just content, just these couple of screens on separate interviews and try and just test that with people. I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, and making it a separate thing we're asking for. Oh, I see what happened. It's like, why didn't I get a new email? So
has already been delivered.
It has been, but it's just that David and I can both see this, and David already opened it, so we saw that went through. So that's good. You could CC yourself too, so that's an option here on the screen, which I won't have anymore because I've already sent it. But you can copy yourself on the delivery so that when you're testing, you know it's not going to directly to the court if you're on the test server, but you can copy yourself so you can see if it gets sent somewhere. All right, so I think that's the basic process. I feel like actually we do need a little bit more time on this form to get some things checked over, but now it has all the pieces there, so it's just that part's done, so it doesn't have to be redone.
Yeah.
Thanks for sitting along with this long discovery process here. Yeah, well, people definitely were interactive along the way, but are there any thoughts now that we've kind of finished it? Questions about other things we should include?
Do you think you've gotten your checklist? I mean, do you have to go back to your checklist now?
Should we go take a look at it together, maybe?
Yeah. So are we gonna, okay.
So I think I made this a clear way to say it. The only question that should pop up when you click send to court is the notes for the clerk. So, pretty long. This is really too long to be a final checklist.
Well, we think maybe we pull out some of them for different stages, right?
Do we want those to be checklists still? Because that's something to think about.
I think, yeah. I don't know if you can, but you might be able to drag a question from, you can create it. Yeah, you know that, clone this one and then delete different ones.
Yeah, I can. Okay. So let's see. I think like having the court selector in there is part of an earlier stage. Oh, no, it didn't actually let me put it in there.
Did you clone? No, what you can do is if you delete this checklist and clone the one you have, and then you can delete them from one, you know what I mean?
It actually ended up letting me doing it. So like.
When you go back to when you add a checklist. Oh, okay, whatever.
I was able to drag and drop it is what I was saying.
Oh, you were? Oh, okay.
I couldn't at first. I just hadn't put it in the right part in the target.
Yeah.
This one I would want to duplicate, actually. Wonder if I can do that. We really do want it to be a step that takes place here. So this is going to be an earlier step, really. These seem like they're more specialized things doing that. They're not hard, but they are more specialized. This is something that's more like a standardization thing.
When you drag, are you able to copy or are you just moving?
I only can move.
Okay.
So this has to be done here because it's after the download screen. And I pulled out user needs interpreter, but it's really the mandatory contact methods. So I'm going to just make that parallel. That's covered the two things that we need to check. Oh, one more thing I forgot. Let's look at the cover page.
What does regular interview flow mean for user needs an interpreter? Does it mean before a certain point, or like?
So when you click a button, you're executing the linear flow of the interview. You're creating an action that isn't controlled by the mandatory code block. So that's what it means.
You mean
What?
so? You mean the
Sorry.
whole bit about it's coming from basic questions, or it's coming from sending? It's the code that already exists that has to do with sending to the court.
No. So the
This
interview.
is the interpreter question, right? User needs an interpreter.
So when you click a button, it's not the regular flow, it's an action. The flow is all the mandatory questions.
What do you mean by a button? Can you give an example, maybe?
So the really specific example is the button that we have in our interface, which is the send to court button.
So but what you're saying, Quentin, is make sure that user needs an interpreter is asked in the interview somewhere that makes sense.
As opposed to where makes sense.
Okay, so I think you maybe didn't notice when we were doing this, which is,
okay.
Yeah, when we ran this through,
yeah.
that interpreter question was asked once I clicked send to court, because it's needed for the cover page. So
right.
You don't want to have happen.
But you want to have
yes, I know. It's just the instruction there is not very clear about when it should come. Before you click send to court is a great description. Yep. Anywhere before send to court sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, this is more like a final step thing here. This is more of a final step thing.
Should it be before the basic signature flows, though, before signing and preview and stuff? Does it matter?
So I think we could spell out a lot of things in detail, but it's kind of hard to read a really long checklist question.
That's
so I'm trying to shorten the instructions, not make them longer.
Okay.
You think that you want the question IDs in both checklists, Quentin?
Sure. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Did it go in both? Right.
I just saw it somewhere, but I wasn't sure if.
I thought I'd moved it down, but I left it at the bottom of the list instead of moving it to the other list.
Oh, I see.
I'm just saying IDs. I'm not sure where preview screen falls in this list. I guess it's part of the download page.
Yeah.
Some of these are going to be automated. For the PDFs, people are going to have a preview page already, but I think it won't be for the docx files. And I'm not sure. That seems more like a finishing thing than more.
I think in the checklist, Quentin, you can do URLs. So for the add a preview screen, you could link it to the README file.
Yeah, let's do that. And I'm wondering if I should copy that whole question in there.
Yeah.
In both places. And we might rename this or break it into a different file at some point. But the first purpose of this was to help people who are working in docx files have a place to look for instructions.
I think it's helpful in the I guess the PDF files, because they're auto-generated. You're okay with that, yeah, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's copy this in and this in. I'm not sure the best way to make it clear that those are placeholders. Maybe by making a syntax error.
I mean, a lot of times they'll be like in angle brackets, but I don't know if people reading this will know that convention. I haven't yet found a way for anybody to write something clearly enough to describe what are or aren't placeholders.
Placeholder.
Yeah.
Okay, but I tried to
Is
make
it
it
the
so there's
preview
none that are in
screen,
the
or is that
text.
the preview screen like
Variable.
variable name?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I think you want to put variable name in there.
So it's not the actual form, which is what I would call, yeah, preview screen variable.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Okay. And let's copy in that. Okay, I'm remembering the variable name wrong, I guess. Let's see. I'm going to copy this in too, because this is another one where you're pretty likely to just use this as a placeholder.
What are those three? Is that to say that that's code that you can copy, those three little dots in the GitHub README file? Mhm.
Yeah, you'll see. So when I hit commit, you'll see what it does. It does syntax highlighting automatically.
Right. That's what you were doing in Slack, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and actually I actually don't know if this flavor of Markdown that GitHub uses will let you say what language you want it to use. Let's try that.
yeah, well, I think
We can
last
just
I used
say
it,
YAML after the 3 ticks.
yeah, YML. I think not with an A, but I could be wrong.
It's definitely with an A if it supports it, because
Okay.
YML isn't a file format, it's just a file.
And you can also hit preview changes to see what it's going to look like.
It's okay. There, see, now it's getting the
Yeah,
syntax
that's
highlighting
nice.
too.
Yeah.
The other ones I don't think need that because they're shorter, but that one's long enough.
Hmm.
Let's see. Well, I'm happy to have other people. You don't have to do it on this call, and I know we only have like 10 minutes till our stand-up. People want to grab food. Any other thoughts though so far about this? Does this seem like a process more people would be able to? I mean, a lot of this could be done before we turn it over to being ready to go to the court, but there's still
So
a
what
last
do you
pass.
do? So these are things that you have to check. So then, did you want to say what? I mean, eventually, what do you do when you're, you know, you say, okay, it's ready to go to the court. What do you do to do that?
Great
Or do
question.
we run it by you and David one more? I mean, at what point, like, I know none of us are ready to do this yet, but what would be the next steps? We go through the checklist. We're like, okay, this has got everything it needs. Now what do we do?
Yeah, and this step is pretty messy so far. Like once we have more forms that are, people have thought about this as a goal,
Yeah.
we might make this be more selective.
Right.
But like these forms are ones I know, like, okay, people aren't working on it because most of the work is done and they didn't really know what the next step was.
Mm-hmm.
And actually that's not quite true for the affidavit disclosing care or custody.
Yeah,
That's more like it's going to need some work to separate it. But I still
Yeah.
want to flag it as one that we could get out in the world in the next week or two.
Sure.
Potentially, at least get to the court in the next week or two.
Mm-hmm.
So I would start by putting it here.
Yeah.
You might look at the checklist and do more things before putting it there than these forms have done.
Yeah.
And then I would move it to this, ready for court review.
Oh, gotcha. Didn't see that list.
It's a new list I just added yesterday. And I don't know if Maeve, if you and Jody had other ideas about how to reorganize this, then that's fine too. I just thought I'll do this now for me for the forms that I know are at that stage.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. No, I think we're actually meeting with John tomorrow morning.
This
Okay.
is
Or
the skim agile guy.
yes, yeah, John Grant.
Mhm.
And so I think it's tomorrow morning, just depending on his availability. So I'll thank you for bringing these up because I wanted to mention that to him as well. Like we're going to talk about splitting up the boards and yeah.
Oh, that's
So yeah, don't feel like you have to stick with these. I just added them so we had something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
And
perfect. I
then-
think that's beneficial to have those.
And then we should have a more defined process for that. Right now, the process is I've said it looks like it's ready, and I tell David that, and he looks at it and decides if he thinks it's ready, and then he sends it to the court,
Mm-hmm.
which might be fine, but we might end up with a bottleneck there if we don't have more clear procedures there.
If we have too many forms, right now we don't have to worry about it.
Right now, we don't have to worry about it. Although I think we have a lot of forms that are like at the 90% mark, right?
Right, but that last 10% is always the hardest, isn't it?
And that's why we need a few people who are focused on doing that last 10% for a lot of forms, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Can we possibly put out to the crowd quickly, just while we have them on the line, like people who've been kind of watching this? Does anybody feel like that's something that they would be interested in doing?
Yeah, that's right. That actually was the point of this call. Thank you for not letting me go without.
Eleni
figure
says
it out,
yes.
Dave.
Eleni says yes.
Yeah, I'm specifically looking at Eleni. So, okay, that's good.
Oh.
So it wasn't...
And then Mia is also saying
Is
that
she?
she's interested.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
Perfect. Okay, that's great. Well, that's what the point of the call was. So I think that, and as you said, you know, we haven't developed, we're still developing this process. So it's going to take, it was a bit all over the place today, but hopefully we'll get something kind of waxed shortly.
I think the checklists are really helpful. And
Really,
also,
really helpful.
the checklists are helpful, and then linking to the code. And then if Eleni and Mia go through, because the thing is, it's like, this is what we think we do. So then Eleni and Mia can go through some of these, and not the affidavit of care. Don't worry about that one. But and there's one
great.
other that we don't.
These first two are good. So I thought the motion for impoundment, that's another standalone, right? That the court should surely want.
Right, but that one, don't you think we're still working on some of the pieces?
Yes.
So, but I can I think I'm hoping to get that one done in the 29A today, which then I can go in and do the edits for that form, and then I can let Eleni and Mia know that that's ready to do the finish checklist.
And these two are at that stage too, I think. So these are really short forms that Mark Ferraretto did, who's at University in Adelaide.
Right.
So what I don't know is, I think one more step, which is, okay, for some of these older forms, we had this idea of one big repository with all of the forms. That's
All right.
not been manageable. So we're not doing that for new forms, but these ones still exist inside the main MA virtual court repository, I believe.
Can we put that in the checklist to make them a package on their own?
Yeah, and I guess it goes here.
And maybe not yeah, exactly, the final step. Yeah, if not its own package, make it its own package. Which would be good too, because that would include a lot of the work that Michelle has done with people to use GitHub.
That's great.
It might be good as a first step as opposed to a final step.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
Because then
just
you're
can't
not.
add it. I'm putting it there at the top. You just can't put
okay.
it in. You can't add an item at the top.
Got it.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, it'll make all these other things easier. You don't want to really start changing stuff if it's still in the main repository.
Mm-hmm.
Once we have more things broken in their own repository, this is a whole separate question. We might have to change our procedure for filing issues by using the link on the bottom of the form. So when you're running the form right now, there's a link that goes to GitHub.
Oh, for the issues, and it needs each
It needs to be for
form
a specific
needs
interview.
Yeah.
Eventually.
I was going to ask you something else. Oh yeah, so right now when you run the generator, the YAML generator, does it, when it does the include file to basic questions, does it have the whole path for basic questions, or does it just have basic questions within that package?
It has the whole path.
Oh, okay. So when people make their own repository, they'll be good. They don't need to, that's not something you have to check to make sure that if you make it its own package.
It's a good thing to check because people might have been testing it a different way.
I mean, I personally, there might be kind of another step to it, which is to make it its own package and then only include the files that are necessary. So not the whole MA virtual courts gets passed down.
Yeah.
Right. So we might want to make a video or go over that process or something.
Right. But that shouldn't that be included in part of making it its own package rather than a separate step in the chat? That's part of making it its own package, I think.
Yeah. Yes,
It
exactly.
is. And so I don't know if you know, Michelle, when you create a new package, you start without anything being selected. So
sorry,
you
I must have missed something. Sure.
When you make your own package, I already, I'm just committing the changes we made. But if I click the add button, I think I can do that safely, actually. I have my whole playground
in the
visible,
same project. Yeah. Okay.
But nothing is pre-selected.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So the default would not be to have every file.
You don't have to delete. You just make sure when you make your own package, you include the files you need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we could spell that out if we think people might not know for sure how to do that.
All right.
Yeah.
So when you make a package in the same project, God, I get all those different things. So crazy. Okay. You can't push to a different repository though.
You have to make a new package, and then
The
you can
package
commit
is your
to whatever repository you like. Yeah. If it has the same name, there's a problem with the priority of it figuring out what package you want to push changes to.
Okay.
But you should always give it a new name too. So that wouldn't be a problem as long as you are giving it its own independent name.
Okay.
So I think that's a good, so we've kind of identified two things that people might not know right away. So I don't think we can add those into a checklist, but I think we could have instructions for how to do this. And those would be two facts that would go on that.
Yeah.
With those instructions.
Michelle's done so much work on this. It just seems like if we could just pull together the stuff she's done, that would be really terrific. Or even what you did today, Michelle, is just maybe make a like you were saying, make a step-by-step checklist for this.
Yeah, I can try to go over the video and do that. I was thinking of a PowerPoint. I don't know if it'd be easier for people. I guess it's
I
just
think
different
anything
modes.
that's visual.
Different modes.
Yeah, I think that's great. Okay. Well, it's almost
2
12:30
minutes.
now, so I'll see
minutes.
everybody in a few minutes again. I'll put this up on YouTube for people who didn't make the call.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Quentin.
everybody.
Thanks, Clinton.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.